We hear a lot about gimmicks in video games. For those that don't know, a gimmick is something that is supposed to get you interested in the game, but ultimately doesn't add much value to your experience. Now, sometimes publishers will hype up gimmicks as being fresh, a new way to keep your interest in a game, when in reality, the new feature wasn't all that important or impressive. I call back to Fish AI. If you know, you know. And there have been a lot of gimmicks throughout Call of Duty. There have, because the franchise keeps trying to find new ways for us to get interested in the next installment, regardless of how burnt out we may be. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. Today, I bring you a non-AI video. 20 of the dumbest gimmicks in COD history. So you let me know in the comments which of these you thought was the dumbest. I truly appreciate each and every one of you that comments on every single video. Drop a like. Let's go for 1,272 likes in 24 hours. I know this channel can do that. That's a gimmick. It is kind of a gimmick, huh? It doesn't really add any value to you guys for dropping a like, but then again, I don't know. But we may have just completely torched the whole video. At number 20, Nightmares mode. Black Ops 3 was the first and only Call of Duty game to feature Nightmares mode, which was an alternate version of the single-player campaign where the story was altered and the enemies were replaced with zombies. Basically, it was a second zombies mode that used the campaign missions as giant maps. It was interesting, it was, but not many people actually played it, and it was pretty clearly just a way for the developers to hype up a new mode and beef up the amount of content in the game at launch. Now, I'm not hating on Black Ops 3 for having more content on the disc on day one, and frankly, I thought Nightmares was actually kind of a cool idea, but between the lack of post-launch support and the fact that it never returned after Black Ops 3, I think it's safe to say it was a gimmick. At number 19, DMZ. I know some of you really like DMZ, but at the end of the day, it was a gimmick. It was just to get people to buy Modern Warfare 2. DMZ was meant to be Call of Duty's attempt at an extraction shooter, and it did have some merit to it, as well as a passionate community, but the mode, it didn't receive nearly as much post-launch support as we were expecting, and then once the Modern Warfare 2 season ended, DMZ never returned. Now, allegedly, it will be coming back in Modern Warfare 4, but that's not confirmed, and I think the entire DMZ community would agree that Infinity Ward never intended to support the mode as intensely as it needed to be supported. Again, good mode, had some merit. At the end of the day, it was just a gimmick. Specialist abilities. They were a staple of the COD franchise for a few years, which was kind of a weird time. They were introduced in Black Ops 3, and then they returned in Infinite Warfare and Black Ops 4 with varying degrees of intrigue. Black Ops 3, the abilities were kind of interesting, but ultimately, it was just a little bonus weapon for you to whip out every few minutes as opposed to being an integral part of the multiplayer like you would expect from something like this. Now, Infinite Warfare and Black Ops 4, more trivial. Black Ops 4 even had an entire playlist called Bare Bones, where the whole point was that the specialist abilities were disabled. Now, I think Call of Duty was just doing its best to appeal to people who liked hero shooters and maybe more ability-based experiences like Destiny and Overwatch, but they didn't want to sacrifice the core Call of Duty gameplay loop, so that meant the abilities couldn't be too strong. Ultimately, turned them into a gimmick, which is why they were deleted from the game starting with Modern Warfare 2019. At number 17, weather variants. There's something that were attempted in Black Ops 4, and then they didn't return. Treyarch would hype up a new DLC map, then it would be revealed that it was just an existing map with a change in weather or lighting. Now, some of these were kind of a cool take. Firing range at night, seaside sunset, that was cool. There's some others that were almost unplayable. Arsenal Sandstorm, Jungle Flooded. I mean, shaking up the weather on an existing map seemed like an interesting idea since other FPS games were doing something similar, but those games didn't let the weather impact the experience of the map. Weather variants were a big swing and a big miss in Black Ops 4. They never came back. You're probably picking up on the pattern here. Today's video is sponsored by DCKO. If you're a DC fan like me, this one will immediately catch your attention. DCKO is a free-to-play mobile fighter coming to iOS and Android in 2027. Features both live PvP against real opponents and deep PvE experience set across the DC universe. It's a 2v2 tag team system. You bring two legends into battle, use assists, combo tags, super tags, you create your own strategies. Super easy to pick up, but it definitely looks like there's a lot of depth once you start learning the mechanic. What stood out for me right away was the roster potential. The team-up possibilities are endless. Being able to mix DC superheroes and DC supervillains together and build your own combinations, it's kind of a thing that I've always thought was pretty cool. The art style pops, and from what I've seen so far, the combat looks pretty fast and fluid and built around making every match feel different. And you can level up your legends and customize their super to better match your playstyle. I also like the fact that they're putting equal focus on both sides of the game. Whether you're someone who wants to jump into live PvP, test yourself against other real people, or you just rather spend your time in PvE content exploring the DC universe, That's kind of my vibe. It looks like there's going to be plenty to do either way. Plus, they're planning to add a new legend every single month. A big thank you to indie developer Dropfake for sponsoring this video. DCKO is an upcoming free-to-play mobile DC fighter, live PvP versus real opponents worldwide, or you can take on the DC Universe solo and PvE. You can register through my link at the top of the description, the pinned comment, or you can scan the QR code to be the first in when it drops. And number 16, Black Ops Cold War score streaks. Now, this system was a major part of the marketing for multiplayer. It was hyped up as a brand new way to experience the COD franchise. Treyarch really wanted us to be excited about this new system that would reward you, the player, and the Slayer, and the OBJ players, all with giving the less skilled players a chance to win big. But it was just a lame part of the game that most people didn't enjoy and it never returned after Cold War. I think that's the main indication of whether or not something is a gimmick. If it never comes back, I think it's the big G. If something was really a cool idea and the developers really wanted to build upon it, they would keep it coming back. They would evolve it. But when something is put in the marketing and then it never returns after the first appearance, I think that's a dead giveaway it was a gimmick. And number 15, combat pacing. Raise your hand if you remember. Combat pacing showed up only one time in COD history. That was in COD Vanguard. It was hyped up as a new way for you to matchmake, offering 3 distinct ways, those being tactical, assault, and blitz, to do it. System was hyped up like crazy. It's a new way for you to get some variety in your gameplay, but in reality, all it did was change the number of players in the lobby. I mean, I guess on certain maps you didn't even notice the differences in combat pacing until you opened up the scoreboard and saw how many players were in the lobby. I'm sure some people appreciated this, but I think, there's a reason why it never came back after Vanguard. It's not that it was an objectively bad feature or anything of the sort, but it was a gimmick. It didn't have nearly as much of an effect on the game as I think Sledgehammer said it would. At number 14, Free Run. Do you remember Free Run? Bonus mode, Black Ops 3. It's actually a cool idea. Then it got absolutely zero support post-launch and most people forgot it existed. This mode was basically a bunch of challenge runs and obstacle courses that you could do to test your mastery of the exosuits. They were interesting at first. They weren't very long-term as an experience though. Once you did all the courses, you probably never felt the need to do them again, and since Treyarch never actually released any DLC courses, people forgot. Again, it was a cool idea to have challenge courses to make up for the most advanced movement, but I don't really know what the point was if Treyarch was never intending on releasing additional courses. At number 13, Operator mods. Hugely marketed part of Black Ops 4 with them being a brand new way that the game would shake things up. In reality, Operator mods were a handful of weapon-specific attachments you could put on your class at the cost of some extra slots of your pick 10. Yeah, some of them were cool, and some of them were overpowered. But ultimately, they were never a major part of the experience. A lot of us were really thinking Treyarch would be experimenting with the Operator mods as time went on. Perhaps add some new ones to the existing weapons, give multiple mods to the same gun, but none of that happened. They were literally just a handful of weapon-specific attachments. That was it. I'm not really sure why Treyarch felt they were so important during the lead-up into the game, but they did. At number 12, Riley the Dog. Those of you who are around for the COD Ghost marketing campaign probably remember just how front and center Riley was. Main dog and Ghost. Trailers all made it sound like you were going to have the pooch with you the entire experience, both in campaign and multiplayer. When the game came out, it wasn't true. Riley barely shows up in the campaign, and in multiplayer, it's a kill streak. I mean, with the amount of marketing juice that went into Riley, I needed more. I needed more doggo. At number 11, Field Orders. Now, this one's kind of a shame, because they could be really fun, but ultimately, they were kind of dumb, and that's the main reason they never returned after Ghost. For those that didn't play Ghost, Field Orders were a little bonus objective that would pop up time to time. If you completed them during a match, you got a special reward. Sometimes the reward was something crazy like turning into Michael Myers or the Predator. Other times, it was something totally cheap like a free chem strike or a ridiculous kill streak that destroyed the enemy team without you ever having to work for it. I think we all like to remember the cool Field Orders, but we like to forget about the ones that ruin the experience because yes, you heard me right. You could get a chem strike without earning it in this system. You could literally just do a couple challenges and get a free chem strike. Field Orders could be fun from time to time, but they were ultimately a gimmick to make you feel like COD Ghost was a fresh and new experience that never came back. At number 10, dare I say it, Omni Movement? Now you could argue this isn't a gimmick because the entire game is built around it, but given what we know about the future of Call of Duty and the movement system that Black Ops 7 is apparently going to have, I think it's safe to say Omni Movement, as it is in Black Ops 6, is more of a gimmick than anything. Being able to sprint in any direction is cool. Definitely cool to dive through a window or off a balcony or dive backwards on your back, but at the end of the day, I don't know if Treyarch really did that much with the movement system, at least not to the extent that they made it sound like they would during the marketing. I mean, I really thought Omni Movement would be a more integral part of Black Ops 6 design. Aside from a few maps, Maybe it's a hot take. I don't think it is. At number 9, jetpacks? That's one of the ultimate gimmicks, right? Because while they started as a core part of the experience, they quickly became an afterthought. I mean, Advanced Warfare was clearly designed with exosuits at the front of Sledgehammer's mind. You can tell that from the map design. All the AW maps are clearly designed to be played with jetpacks. Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, pretty clear the advanced movement was an afterthought. Many of the maps could be maneuvered perfectly fine without using your jetpack, and there was even some remakes of classic COD maps that you didn't need the jetpacks at all. And then when 2017 rolled around, the jetpacks, they were deleted. I respect the attempt to do something new, but the jetpacks very quickly went from being a core feature to a gimmick, and that, to me, is a shame because other games like Titanfall and Splitgate proved how awesome advanced movement can be if you design the whole game around it. Are we ever going to get them back? At number 8, doors. Interactive doors were added to the COD formula in Modern Warfare 2019, and they were a huge part of the map design. Granted, doors are still part of the experience, and I think we all know that they are way less common to see around the map than they were in 2019. If you boot up Modern Warfare today and you jog through the maps, you'll see doors everywhere because Infinity Ward thought this was going to be a major part of the experience. They really thought we'd be using doors super tactically. Instead, the doors, they were just an annoying inconvenience that almost everybody hated, and then starting with the next game, the presence of doors drastically reduced. They're still here. They're absolutely not as important as they were. At number 7, blind fire. Okay, be honest. How many of you actually remember blind fire? It's a mechanic that showed up in Vanguard that would allow you to fire a gun from behind cover, similar to Gears of War. Since this is Call of Duty, hardly anyone was actually taking cover in the first place. I mean, I guess Sledgehammer was looking for new ways you could interact with the map, and I guess maybe they thought people were using more cover than they were, but you rarely ever saw anybody using these mechanics. I don't think it actually came back after COD Vanguard. I could be wrong. People play Call of Duty to run around and shoot each other. Nobody plays Call of Duty for a cover-based experience. And number 6, wall smashing. Be honest one more time with me. How many of you remembered you could smash through walls like the Kool-Aid Man in Vanguard? It was seemingly Sledgehammer's attempt to add some destructibility to the maps in the game, and on a bunch of maps there would be wooden walls that could be destroyed with gunfire explosives, but you could also run full speed at some of these walls and smash right through them. There was even an achievement called Oh Yeah that you would get for smashing through 5 walls at full speed. Seriously, it was in the game. I can understand making destructible environments, but why was there a whole mechanic system for running through them like the Kool-Aid Man? I mean, come on. Now we arrive at the top 5. Divisions. Divisions were divisional, or dividing. I don't even know what I'm saying. They were introduced in COD World War II. They were meant to be a middle ground between the traditional custom classes of COD multiplayer and a more traditional class-based system like the pre-COD 4 days. But what we ended up getting was a weird system where you would only get one perk called a basic training this time around, and then the rest of your character's abilities would be tied into the division you were playing, and then on certain divisions, they would also get bonuses for certain weapon classes. The divisions were massively overhauled a few months after the game came out because the way they launched in COD World War II, it was confusing, not very good. I mean, they're okay now, I think. Maybe I'll try the game again after it hits Game Pass, but since the divisions never returned, it belongs on today's list. I mean, the division system was marketed as a massive shakeup in the COD formula, but in reality, it just took customization away from us. At number 4, attachment variants. You probably remember gun variants. How many of you remember attachment variants? These were in Black Ops 3. They were basically only in the game so Treyarch could shove more stuff into supply drops and make it harder to pull weapons. Attachment variants were literally just cosmetic adjustments to tiny little details on certain attachments. And 99% of the time, you couldn't tell the difference once you loaded into the match. They were marketed as this big new piece of customization, but like I said, they were through and through a gimmick. They were only there to make it harder to pull something you actually wanted from a supply drop. They never returned after Black Ops 3. I don't think anybody's asking for them. At number 3, box on the ground, the SATCOM. During the lead up to COD Ghost, the marketing made a huge deal about how they were changing up the COD formula and that this was going to be unlike anything you'd ever played before. And then they put the UAV on the ground in a box instead of being up in the sky, and we all hated it. Replacing the UAV with the SATCOM, seemingly done in an attempt to make the game more team-based and tactical, but I think we all knew it was a fail. The SATCOM was dumb, never returned, good riddance. Keep UAVs in the air where they belong. Remember you had to stack multiple boxes to get like a UAV? Anyway, at number 2, operators. Let's be real, you don't actually care about your operator. Sure, you care about what your operator is wearing, but do you actually care about the operator as a character? Of course you don't. Not unless you're playing a legacy character like Woods or Ghost. The operators were introduced in Modern Warfare's reboot. I'm fully convinced they were only put in the game so Activision could sell you full outfits instead of individual outfit pieces like we used to have in Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3. Full character customization is a thing of the past, unfortunately, and now we're stuck with operators. But It's like I just said, nobody cares about the operators. They only care about what they're wearing. I could name 99% of these operators. It's a gimmick. Just a little model, you put your outfit on, and the outfit is what you care about. Now, number one, I mentioned at the beginning, Fish AI. How many of you remember the Fish AI quote? You didn't hear it for yourself. It's probably hard to believe it was real, but it was.
We've added fluid dynamics, interactive smoke, and also added an AI system to it. So we have fish move out of the way when you get close to them.
During the marketing for COD Ghost, the developers made a big deal about how much work they put into the AI of their fish for underwater segments, which led to the birth of the Fish AI meme. To this day, I'm amazed that anybody on the marketing team thought Call of Duty players would care about the AI of fish. If you swim, they move out of the way. And then somebody shows like a Super Mario 64 game where he's swimming and they moved out of the way 20 years before that. I never even thought about fish in Call of Duty until I heard Infinity Ward talking about their AI. Out of all the ridiculous gimmicks that COD has ever done for us to buy a game, Fish AI takes the cake. There's no contest here. If you have one gimmick that didn't make the list that should have, let me know in the comments. I'll see you soon.
One of the key reasons Call of Duty has been as successful as it is we focus on fish. It's the thing we designed for. It's the thing that drives our success as a franchise. And with all of the new tech, all of the new story elements, everything that we're putting into this next generation Call of Duty, we are still 60 frames a second, low latency controls, a great feeling game. Fish